Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is volume. So there's a fellow by the name of Mike Bithell that made a game called Thomas Was Alone. It was a game about colored blocks that had feelings, I suppose. I mean, it could have been a Disney Pixar movie, but as it happened, it was a puzzle platformer that did surprisingly well, and I actually liked it, which is very unusual. It was very narratively driven. And interestingly enough, the little colored blocks had more character development than 98% of video game characters, which I think is more of a damning appraisal of the video game industry more so than anything else, but one way or the other, it was pretty good and it did really well on multiple platforms, and I liked it. Along comes Volume, something a little bit more complicated. This is a stealth game. Before I begin, necessary disclosure. Mike Bithell is somebody I talk to on a fairly regular basis. He's even been on one of my shows, if you recall correctly, that big round table we did with indie devs, which I believe was called Indecent Exposure, if I recall correctly. That was a good name. We should do that more. Anyway, I kind of know the guy, at least over the internet anyway. Pretty sure I've not met him in real life. Maybe I was drunk, who knows. One way or the other, that's going to color my opinion of this game, no doubt. Because it's a real person. Simple as that. Thought you should know that. Important that you should know that. Ethical that you should know that. Anyway, let's dive into the game. Now, I would like to show you the options menu, as always, but there is a specific bug, which means that the game is crashing every time I try to get out of the options menu while Fraps is enabled and recording. It doesn't happen at any other time. Like, I can turn Fraps off, and it works just fine. Like, I can even have the program running, and it still works just fine. It's a really hyper-specific bug that is probably going to affect nobody at all, but that's the reason I can't show you the options menu. What I will tell you is it's got pretty much everything you could expect out of a game like this. Separate volume sliders, resolution, full screen on or off is also available there, hard shadows, soft shadows, AA, all that sort of thing. Rebindable keys. What I will say is that the key binding for controllers seems to be somewhat incomplete, like it's not fully functional yet. It seems like that's something they're going to need to polish up, but the actual key rebinding for the keyboard works just fine, and this game works just fine with a mouse and keyboard. There's really no issue at all of using that. In fact, I'd probably recommend it. Okay, so what is it? Well, it's 100 levels, at least to begin with, of stealth. I don't want to say stealth action, because action implies things that are not here. This is a stealth game. There are no weapons. There is no violence outside of you being shot in the face with a robotic crossbow every now and again when you screw up a particular stealth maneuver. It's a sneaking game. The sole objective of each mission is to collect all the diamonds in the level and escape. Simple as that. There's a bit of a story going along with it, and there is also a level designer, which you may have noticed in there under Edit Simulation. I'll try and show you a little bit of that towards the end of the video, but outside of that, you have things like staff picks. These are all designed levels, stuff that's available online, as you can see. Basically, in theory, this should have an infinite number of levels, and it has 100 to start you off in a story-driven campaign. So without further ado, let's dive into it and show you exactly what to expect from Volume. In we go. Very interesting simulation-like look. A little bit abstract, a little bit minimalist. Certainly Spartan, but functional. Which is always nice to have in a stealth game, because getting confused with various areas of the terrain and not being able to see what you're supposed to sneak past can be a little bit tricky. And you might be wondering, well, how the hell do I do this? It should be immediately obvious when you look at it exactly what's going on. And I'm just running the clock here. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to get the par time for this because I'm explaining. You've got to sneak through and not get detected. What happens if you get detected? This happens. You get shot. Dead. Immediately. You can sometimes escape the robots. It is actually quite possible. If you keep diving in and out of cover, the robots will eventually lose you. And I have tweaked with the AI quite a little bit to see how plausible that really is to do. Alright, I'm just going to bring them out of the way there. So I can press C in order to make a sound, which will go through smaller walls at any rate, and will make the AI soldiers move towards where the sound was in a logical fashion. So it's a fairly predictable fashion. As a result, you can move through it. I'm going through a checkpoint at the moment, which is fairly important for me because I'm terrible at these kind of games. So I'm just trying to avoid being detected. Now, if I hold down the shift button, I can stick to a wall. This is very important on lower walls because that means you will duck below their line of sight. If you are not doing that, then you will be detected and probably shot with the robo crossbow. At least I assume it's a crossbow. It certainly looks like one. Why they'd be using a crossbow, I don't know. But they are keenly accurate with it, and they never miss. You'll occasionally find these little bits of text exposition throughout the game, as well as occasional pieces of voice acting, though nowhere near as much as Thomas Was Alone. I'm in this interesting position with Mike Bithell's games because this is only his second title, and bringing comparisons to a completely different genre like Thomas Was Alone and defining him by his one single game seems kind of unreasonable, but simultaneously, people are going to want to hear that. It's like, oh, I love Thomas Was Alone. Does this have anything for me? You know, that is a legitimate question asked by consumers. I mean, why would that not be a legitimate question? All right, sneak through here. Now I can grab myself an item. There are various little gadgets available, and they will allow you to distract. So there's a dog here. That dog's going to immediately bark if I move into detection range. That would be absolutely terrible. We don't want any of that. So I can throw this item, and then I can activate it to generate a pulse of sound. And then I can disable this alarm system right here. Oh, and I was detected. But maybe I can escape. Maybe. Sometimes they just kind of give up. There we go. I slipped around the corner, no problem whatsoever. Usually the AI will predictably move to where it spotted you and then kind of try and patrol around that area, but sometimes if you just flip quickly around a corner, they will just lose track of you. Unfortunately, I'm now in a kind of awkward position where there's this dog, but it's not too bad. We can throw our sound generator over there, which will give us a little bit of an opportunity to sneak around here, get out of there, and collect the diamonds. And every level is about collecting the diamonds and then escaping, and this is where I need to go in order to do that. Gotta wait for this guy to return to his patrol position, and then I will toss out another sound generator, and that will be that. You don't keep your equipment from level to level. You use whatever is given to you, bollocks. And wait, bye. Yeah. I was hoping I would be able to get out of that, but apparently not. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. The occasional reference is certainly not outside of this game's particular repertoire. Let's maybe just let him move around there. Unfortunately, I think the dog's facing the wrong direction. So eventually we'll work this out and get out of the level. Sometimes you can just kind of make a run for it. If you continually dive into cover, the robots will not be able to get a lock on you, and then you can eventually escape that way. As far as I can tell anyway, there doesn't seem to be a huge penalty for doing that. Alright, cool. We're good now. He's headed over there. We can flip around here. Now, the stealth mechanics are really, really tight. They do exactly what they're supposed to do, which, to me, is an extremely important component of a stealth game. The game has to work in predictable ways. The game has to have a rule set that is keenly followed, because otherwise it becomes less of a stealth game and more of a try-your-luck sort of game. In this game, you move at an entirely predictable speed. In this game, the robots patrol in an entirely predictable fashion, and if you alert them, one way or the other, they will react in an entirely predictable way. For some people, that might be a negative, but I think if you like stealth games, you know for a fact that that is kind of an important thing, and you absolutely would not want a situation where these enemies are unpredictable, because that would make the stealth component significantly more difficult and more random, which is not what you want. You want it to be predictable because you want to learn and master the rule set. And the game continues to advance the rule set by putting new enemy types, new devices in, force fields to bypass, alarm panels to disable, and so on and so forth. Sounding pretty good so far, yeah? And yeah, as a rule set, it is pretty much rock solid. There's been some kind of weird behavior every now and again, especially when evading robots. Sometimes it seems like the robots really, really want you, and you're never going to be able to evade them, and they continue to pursue you, and then sometimes you just dive around a corner and like, oh, I have no idea where he went. Better give up and go back to whatever the hell it was I was doing. Which is a little bit strange. I'm sure there is a rule set involving all of those things, and I'm sure that everything happens for a predictable reason, but in some situations it does seem a little strange, and it's also possible to, I suppose the term would be, scum the game in a way, and exploit things like these checkpoints, for instance. Because death doesn't really have a huge amount of penalty in this game, other than it taking a little bit of extra time. Now, if you're the kind of person that wants to do the leaderboards, then obviously that's a big deal. You don't want to be detected. But if you don't care about that stuff, you can, if you get detected, you can just run for a checkpoint, and it'll immediately spawn you at that checkpoint, probably past the obstacle. So you don't even have to really deal with the obstacle in a legitimate way. You can just exploit the checkpoints and run from there. There is a little bit of a disadvantage. If you die at a checkpoint, it will reset the cooldown on your abilities, which means that you have to wait a little bit to recharge whatever device you have. So that actually becomes a little bit frustrating, and I'm not really 100% convinced that that's necessary, but it is an element of the game nonetheless, so that's something you have to bear in mind. Now, there's a surprising amount of voice acting in this level, because I was gonna, and I'll probably still make this remark anyway, because I think it's fair. If you're going to make a comparison to Thomas Was Alone, obviously you can't do so in terms of mechanics, but you can do so in terms of the way that the game presents narrative and how it does its exposition. There was a lot of talking in Thomas Was Alone. In fact, it was actually one of the strongest aspects of it. The fact that you got introduced to these various colored block characters, and they became really the focal point of your experience. I don't think we have to actually go this way, do we? Now, I've picked up an item called the Mute, which will allow me to dash through a lot of this stuff. There we go, without too much of a problem. Oops, it's alright. Not, and there we go. And out of the level. Obviously, if you wanted to do that, I'm slightly under par, but if you wanted to do that in like 40 seconds, which is what people have apparently managed, then you'd have to do that a little bit more optimally. Anyway, back to the whole idea of narrative. I think it's probably because of the number of levels, but the narrative seems to be much, much more spaced out this time around. And you could view that as potentially a weakness. And why would you view that as a weakness? Well, a lot of what made Thomas Was Alone really interesting was not the puzzle platforming. You know, a lot of games have done what Thomas Was Alone did. It did it fine. No, I didn't really have a reason to complain about what it did, but one way or the other, you can say, hey, it's just a little colored puzzle platformer. And then what was particularly special about it, there we go, I managed to screw him over just a little bit there. What was particularly special about it, now I'm just gonna die, for obvious reasons, was not the puzzle platforming. It was the character development. It was the way that narrative was used in that game. It was a constant little experience that you were being narrated to as you went along. It gave you that Bastion feel, that Stanley Parable feel, that sort of thing. Even though I'm pretty sure that game actually came out before either of those, but hush. Quiet, you. All right, we're just gonna... You see what I mean about the AI? You chase it around enough and eventually it could get upset and leave. But there you go. Now, maybe we could actually not screw this up this time. That would be great. No, we screwed it up anyway. Okay, it's fine. We can make a dash for it. It probably won't notice me. It's gonna notice me. I'm very dead. Never mind. This time around, you've got a bit less of that. For some people, that's gonna be okay. I don't know if you would call it a signature of Mike Bithell's games, because it really only happened in one of Mike Bithell's games. I keep screwing that up. Damn annoying. It's okay, I think we can make a run for it now, and I was utterly mistaken in that assumption. It was a signature of one game he did. And he uses it here, but nowhere near as much. Is that a bad thing? Some people are going to think so, because I think a lot of people were certainly attracted to Thomas Was Alone, not because it was a puzzle platformer. They were attracted because of the narration. And that's fair. That's totally fair. I need to not screw this up. Come on. Oh, bloody hell! For God's sake. Sorry, give up, and then come this way. There we go. There we go. All right, got it, I think. Excellent. Now we can leave. That was a bit of a bumbling way to do it, but we did it nonetheless. Now, if you are hoping for the same level of engagement with interesting characters, this game doesn't have that, in my opinion. There's really only three main characters. The antagonist, who only sort of shows up about 25 levels in. The protagonist, who is you. And this AI that's kind of helping you along. Those are the three characters. And they don't really speak all that often, honestly. There's the occasional quip being given out. Can I even do this? Yes, I can, okay. There's the occasional quip being given out by the main character, and the occasional short conversation between him and the AI. But outside of that, it's kind of about it. Now, it's not the constant discussion, and there's certainly no, this is happening to this person sort of narration. It's done in... You know, it's very much in the first person. These are characters, not like saying, Thomas was this, Thomas was that. That style is not used here. And for some people, that might be a little bit bothersome. But I think the one thing that kind of gets me, and this is a very subjective criticism, and I think it's based on the idea that I actually am not really a huge fan of stealth games to begin with, is that the sort of thing that would have really kept me playing this game is the same sort of thing that would have kept me really playing Thomas, which is the narrator. That's what kept me playing. I'm not really big into puzzle platformers, but I was entranced by Thomas for that reason, and that was bloody stupid. Why did I do that? And I'm not getting that same thing from Volume. And for some people, that's not going to be a problem, because if you're the sort of person that's like, yeah, I want a stealth game that has potentially infinite levels, that allows me to design my own, that has a solid set of rules and that works really, really well, that's Volume. Right there. That's volume in a nutshell. That's what volume does. If you're the sort of person that said, oh, it's a Mike Bithell game, so we'll have some really great dialogue and they're constantly going to be talking to me and engaging me in the story that way, no. That's not volume, at least not the first 30 or so levels that I've done. Why do I keep doing this? Bloody idiot. Just let me shoot me. Go on. I deserve it. I deserve it. That's not volume. That's not what volume is. And you know what? I think that's okay. And simultaneously, it's, for me anyway, slightly disappointing. It's a real shame, for me anyway, that he didn't utilize the same things that really made me enjoy Thomas. But I don't think it's okay to hold a developer to the standards of his previous game and say these are the only kind of games you can ever make. I mean, it's not like he made 5 games that were all like that, and then suddenly this was a departure from that. Then I think you can kind of understand why some people would be like, oh, I kind of wish you didn't do that. Yeah, I can make this run. There we go. Whew. All right, we're good. We're good. That's all understandable. But, you know, if this being his kind of second major commercial release... I've fucked this up completely, haven't I? You can absolutely understand why he would not choose to do the same thing. And I get that. But for me, it means that it's a competent stealth game that I personally have not got into in a huge way like I did with Thomas Was Alone. That is... I could just make that run myself, couldn't I? Of course I can. Overthinking it. And that, for me, is a bit of a disappointment. And that could be a disappointment for a great many people. Entirely possible. I'm not going to blame you for that. Oh, bloody hell, really? I thought I activated the mute. I guess I hadn't. Go away. Go away. I'm not here. I'm not here. It's fine. Ooh, that was great. I actually screwed up their patrol patterns now, so this will make it a lot easier to get around. So we can do that now because we're outside of their hearing range. Da, 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 da. You are idiots. Not especially. Not anymore, it ain't. I messed it up for them completely. There we go. Where is the last one? I don't know, but I use the mute to get over there. There we go. So that's kind of what I think of Volume. It's absolutely a competent stealth game, no doubt about that. It is a well-executed stealth game. I like the music. The aesthetic is a little bit garish in many places, but it does mean that you absolutely can see exactly what's going on, which is ridiculously important in a stealth game. The last thing you want is for your environment to obfuscate what you're supposed to be doing. That would be silly. If I had any other criticisms, it would be that the way that he's designed this game means that the objectives that you are given are really purely narrative. Where's that one jewel that I missed? I actually have no idea where that is. Alright, we'll keep wandering around and try and find it. Am I blind? It's probably over there somewhere. It gives you objectives, and it sets up these characters, these sort of antagonist characters, like, you need to break in here and steal this. But because it's all sort of done in a virtual environment, you're not really stealing that. You're just collecting jewels, essentially, for all intents and purposes. That's all you're doing. There it is. It's right bloody there. Okay, fair enough. That's all you're really doing, and that's all you're going to be doing level after level after level after level, which is a little bit of a shame, I think. I mean, you got to give it points for consistency, I suppose. I don't think I've got all of the gems, have I? There's one more somewhere. It's behind him, isn't it? You know, I was talking about environmental consistency, and then I suddenly realized that gem is the exact same color as the soldier, and I missed it. Well, there you go. Okay, maybe there's one exception to that. But that does mean that, you know, objective-wise, the game is certainly quite repetitive. And the storytelling involved in these various little heists is extremely threadbare. And I think that's a missed opportunity. Like, you're looking at all of this stuff, and it's telling you about these various characters. The soldier, the king of the south, the thug, there's the deposed queen, and all that sort of stuff. But you learn so little about them through the spoken narrative, at least not in the first 30 of 100 levels. It may very well be possible that the game kicks into gear when it comes to the storytelling later on. But, I mean, 30 levels in, you would definitely expect a little bit more. I mean, I've only heard from the antagonist once up to this point, and it was great, but obviously I want to hear more of that. I assume that's going to build up. But as for these characters, you know, there's just tiny little shreds of information, and occasionally you can fill in a little bit of the story by finding these text logs. But that's not necessarily the strength that I was hoping for from a game like this. I was hoping to be told through the narration and all that sort of stuff. And you do get bits of information, but I think there's missed opportunities to find out these guys' backstories through all of that. And you just don't really get a lot of it. I don't really know much about any of these outside of these little couple of sentence bios about the mission. It's like, show the audience how to do this. You know, basically you're streaming a simulation of how to steal, essentially. That's kind of the way that the plot works in this. It's like, he uses shops like this to smuggle fine items in plain sight. Yeah, but all I'm going to be doing is collecting diamonds regardless of what this guy does, where this guy is, and all that sort of thing. So that does get a little bit samey, unfortunately. Anyway, speaking of not so samey, we do have, of course, the edit mode. And that means you can create pretty much anything. Yeah? If I want to make walls, I can do that. As to how I do that, that's a bit of a mystery. I have no idea. There we go. There we go. Set up walls. Okay. I actually don't know how this works. All right. Oh, it's not mouse-driven. Okay, it's keyboard-driven. There we go. So you can set up walls this way. It actually does make building the level extremely easy. I don't know why this is not mouse-driven, though. That would make sense. I mean, I could select all of this with the mouse. If I wanted to put a prop here, for instance, I could put alarm systems and noisy props and transporters and all that sort of thing. Here, I could put a coffee machine against this. And these are sort of things you can activate to create noise and all that sort of thing. Set the player, set where you want the camera to be, lighting levels, and all that kind of thing. Which means you can change the color of the environment. And you can name it, upload it, and all that sort of thing. It's great. It's nice that you have that option. And if you happen to enjoy the systems that this game has to offer, that's almost infinite replayability right there. And everything is based on leaderboard. So if I go to run simulation, I go to staff picks, you'll notice that if I click, say, shell, you can see that there's someone that's done that, and I can rate it, and I can go straight into it. It's instant loading times, which is really quite impressive. And then I get to do this little level right here. And almost not screw it up for a couple of seconds. There we go. Nice. I don't think so. I'm terrible. Don't even get me started on that. So, conclusion. It is a solid stealth game, is what it is. I'm not the world's biggest fan of stealth games, just as I was not the world's biggest fan of puzzle platformers. Probably because I'm awful at them. I don't blame the game genres for that. Absolutely not. Perfectly valid game genres. But I suppose there was this hope in me that Volume would inspire the same engagement that I got from Thomas. Maybe that was unreasonable. Is that an unreasonable expectation? Possibly. Because you can't say that, hey, yeah, Mike Bithell does this all the time. It's like, no, that was one game. It's maybe a tad unreasonable to expect that, let's be frank. I would say so. I'd say it's actually... Oh, come on, now. Yes, no, I'm terrible. Don't even get me started. It's perhaps a tad unreasonable to expect that. I think for some people, though, it's definitely going to be an element that they were perhaps looking for, having enjoyed Thomas and expecting maybe a similar experience. And to me, this is not a similar experience. I certainly think it's shown that Mike has grown as a game designer, no doubt about that. But now what I've got out of this is a stealth game. A good stealth game, a solid stealth game, but a stealth game nonetheless, and something that, to me at any rate, doesn't really stand out. Which is a bit unfortunate. But I'm aware that I'm just one person, and I'm also aware that the stealth genre is not something that I even appreciate most of the time. I prefer stealth action rather than pure stealth. That's just my personal preference, so I imagine my lack of enthusiasm for it has a great deal to do with that. So just bear that in mind. You know, have the mechanics on display here got you interested? Do you want to play what is essentially an infinite stealth game for the most part? Is that the sort of thing that you would find particularly engaging? Well, you have an option now. It's called Volume. Oh, there we go. Aha! You know, it might be good to actually train them to use the transporters in their level, but there you go. So that's an option you have now. And it's solid at what it does. It didn't blow me away, unfortunately. I wish it did. And it didn't engage me in the way that his previous title did. It's really that simple. Whether or not that's a reasonable expectation is, I believe, up to you. Volume, ladies and gentlemen, should be available right about now, really, on Steam. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Not a great deal. Gisborne's PR department are projecting calm professionalism in the hunt for a pesky child. There have been a number of robberies against the targets you've shown. Reaction times are getting shorter as the audience grows. Our targets, Rob. They all deserve to be robbed, right? Our targets, Rob. They all deserve to be robbed, right?
Describe the men and women who you have on file, the people Gisborne saw fit to train his guards to protect.
Well, allies from early in Gisborne Industries' history, the highest of his associates tasked with the protection and taxation of England's states, only those who have earned his greatest respect, his gratitude for help.
Rich, evil bastards.
That's right, yes.
Then yes, they all deserve to lose what they stole. Gisborne tells the people that his 3 estates are a fair division, that the richest protect and should be honoured. Money is the division he chose. I aim to address that.
And the innocents?
The only innocents in this country are the people hungry enough to copy these recordings. And I'm showing them how to do this without hurting anyone.
Yeah, it must be nice to see the world so black and white.
Well, as the one of us who's actually seen the world in the last 9 years, I think it'd be best to stick to my interpretation, yeah?
Before you reset me and gave me access to the net, I was as certain as you are now, and all it took was a chat with, what, a paperclip or something? My reset button's tricky to get to.
I used a pen.
Mightier than swords.
We're doing good work, Alan.
I think we are. Yes. We just need to be careful.